Hi there. We are Geeks Assembled, a small assembled group today. We are talking a 1978 movie. Oh, can you guess what it is yet? Susan's pointing there at the back there. We are talking a Clint Eastwood movie, and of course, Clyde, the orangutan. We are talking Every Which Way But Loose. Um, so, shall we go over to you two and have your opening thoughts on this movie?
Sure. Um, okay. The first time I saw this must have been uh, what was I saying? Like right when HBO started, right?
Yeah, HBO.
And we like one of the very first things that we saw when we got cable was this this movie. And um, if you want a movie that is all about getting hit and punching people, like punched in the face, punched in the gut, punched in the side, punched in the head, punched in the motorcycle, punched in the car, you know, and all about country music and how country music will turn people against one another. Yeah, so this is the movie that it was. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing it again. It was pretty interesting. An intriguing piece of film history, must say. And Clint Eastwood is a badass, but you didn't need probably need to be told that. But Clyde is so cute. Or I mean Alan. No, I mean Clyde is so cute. I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Anyway, so it was a good blast from the past. And while I was watching it, Alex knew a lot of the character actors and and he's gonna tell you all about that. And so, like, without further ado, here's Alex for our movie night. Show off your shirt.
Okay. Again, this is like I was trying to tell
Movie night.
Susan here at the end. It wasn't, again, it's an era period piece, just like all movies are, just like all studios are. In the 60s, you started to have the big blockbusters, you started to have art pictures, you started to have really big comedy pictures, really big spy pictures and sci-fi. And then after people got tired of spies, except for James Bond and maybe a couple of Michael Caine movies, they started changing. It started changing into more of a grittier feel or an everyman feel. You had a lot of cop movies of the era. Of course, it's funny because Clint Eastwood decided, even though he did play a cop, he was originally what? He was in one of the Black Lagoon movies for like a minute and a half in the 50s. Then he did Rawhide, which unfortunately wasn't written very well, even though it has a great theme song that it still lives on today, even though that was written by a Russian guy. But then he did the Dirty Harry movies, which again, once they have a popular series or a popular franchise, everybody tries to rip it off. And that's why I love bad movies, because sometimes I'll watch those and I'll go, oh, here's where they went wrong. Here's where it could have been done better. And the funny thing is, Susan actually has a film degree. I don't, but I've seen so many movies, I've actually forgotten some. Uh, and again, they admitted, and even Clint Eastwood admitted, that he did this movie to try to tap into the Burt Reynolds,
Oh, yes.
fame and popularity. And Clint Eastwood, much like what's his name, Charlton Heston,
Oh, yes.
wanted to be popular, wanted to be big, wanted to make a lot of money. And this one has an orangutan, which was also in the Planet of the Apes, even though Clint Eastwood wasn't in that movie or those series of movies. And also, like I said, you had Convoy, you
And it
had
was definitely and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And you also had the Sidewinders, I believe the name of the movie is, which was the original inspiration for the CBS series Dukes of Hazzard, which everybody has forgotten, even if they had a Confederate flag on their car. And that's the other point about movies. Even though they've redone that one like 5 times in movie format, TV movie format, movies aren't necessarily supposed to make you feel good all the way through. There's supposed to be villains, there's supposed to be conflict, just like any good story is. And you're not supposed to like everybody in the movie.
There's lots of people I don't like in this one.
Yeah. And also too, you also have Ruth Gordon, who was also famous for My Bodyguard and Harold and Maude. And people forget, you had to go to see a movie, you had to go to theaters that would show you a double feature or a triple feature. You didn't have to spend $80 just for the popcorn or almost all the popcorn. The seats weren't luxury seats. But as Susan just mentioned, now you have cable channels in 78 or 80, 79. And you had, HBO, you had MTV that would show music videos all the time. Now you just go to Spotify or YouTube. You don't need to watch an actual channel that plays music videos. However, again, country music for the last 15 years has been extremely popular, only competing with rap.
Yes.
So it's very funny how they have country music singers here, then they have ones pretending to be country music singers.
Charlie Rich.
Okay, and Sandra Locke as well. And then you also had Urban Cowboy. And so you had a lot of movies, Sidewinders, Convoy, Every Which Way But Loose, that were trying to emphasize the modern cowboy, honky-tonk world. And then in 85, I think it finally settled down and they went into, Weekend at Bernie's or the Brat Pack, and they started changing the movies around. So, as we all know, because we're intelligent, every 10 years they try a different genre of movie, whether it's spy or sci-fi or country or honky-tonk like this one. And this isn't a bad movie. I like the sequel a little better. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this movie and the interesting turns that it takes. It's romantic, but not 100%, which is interesting. That, even though it pretends to be like the cowboy individualist and all that, they also show the bikers and the cops and all that. So that's sort of interesting that they're showing and not exactly romanticizing all these different types, all these different types of rebels. And also, the women are strong in this movie too. They're not weaklings. They're not, just objects. They're actually, strong women. Could this movie have been written better? Absolutely. But again, every movie's a product of its time between the actors, the producers, and the studio. And people forget that, you make a movie maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, it could be a hit, it could be a cult hit, it could be a sleeper hit. It could be a movie that's made fun of by comedians because it's so mediocre, which I like. But but let's get back to the actual review of this particular movie.
So really quickly, the aspect that I was, it had the bikers, it had the cops, it had such amazing, funny moments, and the country singer was paired with a lot of the big name country acts of the day, Mel Tillis and Charlie Rich and some other people like that. So anyway,
Phil Everly was in there as well.
Phil Everly, yes, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that over to you, Lee.
Oh, thank you, Susan. This movie brings back quite a few memories. This, I'm sure, was the first movie, could have been the second movie, that my dad rented on video cassette to keep
Oh wow.
to keep me quiet on a Saturday night when they went out, my dad and my mother, to party. Well, and left me young Lee at home in front of the TV watching movies. It was I'm sure it was this one and Phantasm. There, go figure. This is how I turned out like I am. Yeah, I'm positive this was one of the first movies. Yeah, it was a success because it spawned a sequel. If you were back in them days, if it wasn't a success, you didn't get a sequel. Um, it's a fun movie. It's of its time. Yeah, I totally agree with what Alex says about Clint wanting to be up there doing sort of things like Burt Reynolds did. He wanted a change of pace. He didn't want to be known as the man with no name, spaghetti western. He didn't want to be known as Dirty Harry. He want change of pace. I want to do a comedy, and it worked. Yeah, Street Fighter, Philo Beddoe. He's got foul mouth. Was it his mother? I think it was his mother. Um, and then you get the Black Widows, the biker gang, which always makes me laugh. The Black Widows is just such a useless group of bikers. It's just hilarious. And they say you get the two incompetent cops as well. It's a great mixture of that. But as it's always been said, the late 70s, you had loads of movies similar, as it's been said, Convoy, Smoking the Bandit. Similar in storyline, similar in action. But one thing they didn't have was an orangutan. And this orangutan, Clyde, what a scene stealer. What a scene stealer, I'll tell you. Every scene he was in, was it a he though? I can't remember. Was it a he or was it a she? What played a he? I'll have to look that up. But yeah, it's a fun movie. Has it stood the test of time? I don't think it has, but it's still funny when you watch it. It brings back good memories. Go on, Alex. You was going to say something there.
Well, I mean, this is the other how can I say it, notion and style that a lot of young people don't understand. Of course, they didn't have, super answering machines. That's why the Rockford Files was popular, because that was the first to have in every episode an answer machine and the voice, leaving the message. And people forget that that was another way, unless you had, $600 for satellite every month. You couldn't see, all manner of entertainment. You didn't have YouTube at your fingertips and your phone doing the work of three computers to watch something. So some of the movies like Scarface, like Rocky, like other uh, movies showed a very particular character that even TV was scared to show back.
Yeah.
That being said, there was the TV show BJ and the Bear, which I think tried to combine both combo,
I remember that one. Yeah.
and Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah.
But the other problem was they wanted to be racy, but they couldn't because it wasn't a movie. That was the other reason why movies were big. It's because you could show nudity and you could show swearing that you couldn't back in the 70s and the 80s and even part of the 90s. And that was the other issue with cable TV, is that they can show more sex, more violence, more swearing. And now that we've gone, 20, 30 years in, they're even trying to push the envelope. But sometimes even they get taken off the air for cable because too many people complain. And back then, there was the long movie lines because you had to. There was no other way to see it unless you, somehow got pirated, videotapes and stuff like that.
Or you rented them.
Right, or you rented them. But even then, I remember
rented
that,
them for your little kids.
right. But even then, I remember Tower and Blockbuster and other chains that are gone now because everything is streaming. That you had to get permission. You had to get permission. I saw confrontations between the clerks and customers. You're renting too much of this movie, or you don't treat the tapes well, or whatever. So it was a combination. So I think people forget that, from the 1930s to the 1990s, going to the movies was a special experience, and it was supposed to be, rich, but you're seeing different things, and you're seeing musicals, and and funny how that's actually come back as well.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but anyway, I think people are forgetting that back then movies were also good because it showed you people that you didn't see on TV. You didn't see that it took, sometimes 5 or 10 years for, a TV network to finally say, okay, we're going to do a version of Fame and other, other products.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you there. Um, we'll go to favorite moments and stuff like that. I'll go. I'll start because I'm in control. Yeah, well, as I've always mentioned, I've mentioned the Black Widows. I think they're a sort of the heart of the movie, as is Clyde. It's Clyde and the Black Widows. Without those two elements, this movie would have fallen flat on its face. Yeah, Clyde. What can you say about Clyde? I mean, one of the scenes I really love is where Philo takes him out on the town, and they end up in a strip joint. And they're both sat at the bar, and Clyde's imitating Fowler drinking away, just staring at the women on the stage. And then say Fowler realizes that Clyde needs a woman. you know, well, no, easy. We'll just break into a zoo and let him do the action there. Oh, that's brilliant. That, but yeah, Clyde is brilliant. Also, with the old mother as well. The interaction between Clyde and the old mother is just so so brilliant. Oh, she keeps calling him a baboon, which I think the performance from I can't remember the actress's name now. Hold on, I'll just look on the Ruth Gordon as Ma. What a performance! Foul mouthed, insane, trying to get her a driving license. And also when she sees off the Black Widows on alone with a shotgun, it's just brilliant. Yeah, go Ma. Yeah, it's I love it. I say that the Black Widows just incompetent cowards. Yeah, okay, you do see a few swastika signs in the background, and also on the tie pins and stuff like that. But I don't think people are even noticing them. They're just seeing the bikers what they are. They're complete idiots. The logos in the background. It just that washes away. You can just see the frustration on the biker leader's face every time. His gang get beaten up by whoever. The bikes get trashed, and it's brilliant. I love that bit. And it's to say, they do return for the sequel as well. Yeah, the Black Widows are a brilliant element of this movie, as long as Clyde. Over to you two.
So some of my favorite moments are the moment by the lake where they push the truck into the water, and the cop is catching a fish, and Clint Eastwood got to do the fish slapping dance from Monty Python. That was, I mean, it was a great throwback, or an homage, or I don't know, just uh, and so that was funny. And I love the fact that that they you know at the end when he's fighting that one that everybody says is the best street fighter ever, and he just lets him win because he sees that it would be an honorable thing to do. So
And and the guy knows that he let him win.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like it was all just wink, wink, but for real, like he was he just saw that that would be the honorable thing to do, and and the fact that the country singer that he likes didn't really like him back and was just just in it for sex was hilarious, and it was annoying to him, and because he chased her all the way to Denver from Los Angeles, all the way through Nevada, all the way through uh, um, New Mexico. They went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then they went up the I-25 or something into Denver, and or they were if there were even if I-25 was even finished back then.
Mm.
So they
Do
go
you,
up,
going back to the Sandra Locke character?
yeah.
Do you think she was the least liked character in the movie, the worst character in the movie? Because for me personally, I could have slapped a woman.
No, I didn't think that she was the worst. I thought that
Because she was using him,
well,
and
right, but that
and she said, I don't care about you, blah blah, this blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, you are one nasty piece of work.
no, she was using him for sex. She wasn't using him for money. She wasn't using him for drugs. She was just using him for sex, and that's a normal thing for to have happen. I mean, that's what all the guys were doing to the women in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah, but
Admittedly,
I, I was only I was I wasn't that old in the 70s. Um,
no, I wasn't saying that you. I mean, I'm just saying that
yeah,
the sexual revolution in London, in Hull, in the United States, it was all the same. It was all like, can we get our rocks off fast enough? It was easier for a girl to say, you know, yes, I'll have sex with you than it was for her to say
yeah, I did,
even what she did for a living.
and I under,
That's the kind of thing that this character was like the opposite of. And so yeah, she maybe made you frustrated, but
yeah.
that was what she was supposed to do.
To be honest, I thought she could have done it in a more understanding way, and then
No,
come off as a I don't know the word for it.
Little psychotic.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she
Okay,
was.
well, let me. Even though I'm not as, again, you know, remember that we're playing with the movie construct here.
Mm,
You know, in real life, they were very much attached to each other, so we know
oh,
that this was already a movie because, according to a lot of talk shows and court cases, they were still connected even though they also slept around. So it's very funny. In real life, they were actually playing the better role than in the movie.
right.
In the movie,
It was a movie.
okay, in the movie sense, they had to change the paradigm of I'm a tough macho guy, so therefore I get the girl, a little bit like the James Bond thing. But
mm.
even if you watch Thunderball, the girl isn't impressed. So I think people forget that just because the movie shows everything pretty and shiny, and I think that's why they were trying to go for grittier, quote unquote, grittier stuff with cop movies, with gangster movies, with this movie. At the same point, Echo, who was Beverly D'Angelo as the actress,
Yeah.
He's been playing characters for a while now that are a little bit more freewheeling and all that in Hair and in this movie and all that, where she says Echo, twice and all that. So she's actually playing more of the promiscuous nymphomaniac than Sandra Locke is. And of course, in reality, if you go to a bar or whatever, you will bump into women that they'll say hell no and worse. They'll say hell no or whatever, nasty stuff.
Or
Even
maybe
if
they'll say yes, and then
right, right.
but maybe they're the ones who are playing you.
Okay, Susie, that's fine. Don't take it too seriously.
I'm not taking it seriously. It's the 70s.
Okay, but remember. So I think they were trying to turn it on its head.
40 years ago.
Okay, we know this already. I think they were trying to turn it on its head that just because you're in a movie doesn't, just like the James Bond things as well. Even in Thunderball, the woman says, I slept with you, but I don't hear heavenly choirs singing. So I think that they were trying to play with the convention because even Roger Ebert, who I liked a lot, but he helped produce and write some trashy movies. Valley of the Doll series, for instance.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, even he didn't like it, even though he produced 2 or 3 movies where the women were very promiscuous. So it's also very hypocritical. And I think
that's what I'm saying.
And that's also a part of life as well. That, even an Urban Cowboy and other movies, just because a girl might talk to you or might like you or you buy them a drink, that doesn't mean that, it's
on.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the earth is moving.
But okay, but in the 70s,
right.
after the sexual revolution, it was easier for a woman to say, yes, I'll have sex with you than it was for her to even express, what she did for a living or where she lived where she lived in the country. It was just, that was the way of things. Okay. And this character and the Beverly D'Angelo character both went against that, and it was.
Okay. But I see it a little differently.
And see, the thing that was interesting about that was that, because there was an ape in it, the subtext of all of this is who's a bigger animal, It's like, she's an animal, and Beverly D'Angelo's an animal, and, Philo's an animal, and a real pugilist animal, and his buddy's a real animal. His buddy's just like a
Okay, but here's the thing.
A little carry on. This is.
Okay, but again, it's still a movie, but it's also showing, different characters. And
it's showing strong female characters.
Right, that too, actually.
But they're all animals.
Okay, so they let the animal side win. That's the way it is sometimes.
But as you say, they're all animals, but all the characters, I think, in the movie are animals.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Maybe apart from Orville. Orville was just one of these lovable sidekicks.
Okay, well, again.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Again, again, that's part of the suspension of disbelief of movies and TV shows, that you can also watch something more than once. Mm-hmm. And it could be just like a radio where you're kind of listening, but you don't have to analyze everything also if you don't want to.
No, you don't have to.
Okay. Because
but here's the
thing.
Look at when the surface.
Even Ruth Gordon was the strongest person in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And I think that, remember that this is from the 50s to the 80s, and Ruth Gordon admitted, because I saw it on talk shows with Phil Donahue and other people, that she wanted to, subvert the common belief that old people are weak or old people are frail or old people are. But now we're talking about it in 2019.
He definitely wasn't.
Now we're talking about it in 2019. So while that may have been, subversive in 1968 when she was in Rosemary's Baby or whatever movie she was in, or Harold and Maude from 1971, Now in 2019, if she was still alive, that character may not be totally original now. But back then, that was more original because the stereotype, the type back then was to assume that old people were frail or weak or, not knowing what they were doing or things like
Yeah,
that. Where
yeah.
she knows what she's doing, she just doesn't care.
Well, she definitely didn't care when she was seeing off the Black Widow. I'll tell you that.
Right. So just like Blazing
Or when
Steel.
she was going off with the guy who was giving her driver's license.
Right. Right.
True.
And I mean, right. And this is the other thing. So Susan's right. If you're talking about society wise,
Yeah.
women are allowed to be more assertive and aggressive. Of course, that can also be a negative side to that where you get beaten up.
Okay.
Well, I mean, she beats up Clint Eastwood in the movie. So.
Right, I know, but
Right.
okay. So it was easy because of the sexual revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Women weren't allowed to be their whole selves, and that's what this movie is like. Telling that it was like making it okay to be your whole self. You don't have to become super romantic with the lead character just because he chases you halfway across the country. You can totally blow him off.
Okay.
That's your deal.
Okay. Well.
And you can be his best mate and follow him with the both Orville and the I mean, it was like that was the thing.
Okay. Well, again, hopefully,
Clyde.
people are also in real life and notice that this is a character that they're portraying. It may or may not be true. It may or may not be accurate. I mean, again, that's the other thing. That was a comedy. That was the time where they were showing that it wasn't the stereotype of, oh, just because you're a man, I'm going to swoon. But I don't agree. Do I like the characters in this movie? Not really.
It was
Not
always
really.
like that.
So, okay, I just said that. I just said in a bar or whatever. Remember, part of this takes place in a bar. So you're not going to see the totally movie version. I mean, even in the movie, he's beating up cops. He doesn't even realize that he's beating up cops.
And then he knows that they're cops.
No, he knows because the bartender told him.
Afterward.
Right. So the thing is.
And then he still beats them up some more.
Okay, but that's
and sinks their truck.
Okay,
which is my favorite part of the movie.
All right, but Susan, I don't like this movie per se. I'm not going to buy it. So I'm not endorsing it per se. Okay?
Well,
but again, this is not the era of, everybody's liked in a movie. This is not the era of it's here to make you feel good. This is the 70s and the 80s where they were answering the stereotype of.
I totally agree there.
Rich, everybody's rich and everything goes their way and all that. So again, as a product of its time, it was showing a different lifestyle. It was showing a different type of people. And it was more violent and it was more nasty per se. And he was in the wrong. So, he wasn't really a smart character until the end where he realized I'm actually a better person for losing the fight. Because I think you're forgetting too that this is a very American type of movie.
Definitely American.
Where it shows might makes right, and you have to be violent, and you have to be ready to punch, and you have to be ready. Because remember, he has a lot of confrontations where he's not walking away, but he's not talking either. But he's also punching them as well. So. That would be great in a movie setting. Of course, in real life, he'd be arrested, he'd be killed. That's why the biker gang is following him. And in real life, he probably would have been brain damaged from all that. And that's where they show in later movies and later TV shows that it may be tough and it may be attractive at the beginning. But in real life, you break your nose, you break your, other parts of your life by boxing so much.
Oh, yeah. See, you said this was 1978. Now we're just talking about this in 2019. Going back to Clyde, the orangutan. If this was to be remade or rebooted or whatever this year or next year, um, would we get a live orangutan in the movie? Would we be allowed to use an orangutan in the movie, or would it all be CGI?
I believe it probably would be more CGI, but remember too that like I said, I think the whole point of this movie, in a way, was to flex Clint Eastwood's muscles, make him money, show him as a different character, so he wasn't known as a cowboy or a cop only, even though he is kind of a cowboy in here as well.
But it worked. It worked for him.
Right, right, it did. But again, uh, it's also very American. It's very much a, I'm grabbing my, hip, I'm grabbing my belt, I'm going to live by my fist kind of.
Yeah, it's an all American apple pie movie.
Well, I wouldn't say apple pie, but,
But
but
yeah,
again, that was the other thing of the time too, like with Rocky and Convoy and Breaker Breaker and a lot of other movies. Even though they showed in Rocky he changed, Apollo got killed, so you don't always want to live by your fists. And he got cancer and brain damage as well. But that was shown in the later movies. That wasn't shown at the beginning. And of course, everybody, that's the other thing too. People forget a lot of things were movie driven back then. You
oh
didn't have
yeah,
the internet, you didn't have the TV, you didn't have the cable. So it is interesting that Clint Eastwood, I mean, even in the reviews and even in the critic reviews, they did not like this movie. They found it very unintelligent. They found it very, lazy.
yeah. But movies don't have to be intelligent. They just have to have a story, have to have a bit of comedy,
Conflict.
conflict. Yeah, but going back to the Clyde thing, because I think the element in this movie is Clyde, live action orangutan, brings a lot to this movie. If
He brought his own character, but um the
we
thing
would
that was interesting was that he was trained.
yeah,
He was a part of a trained organization, and they said he was part of a trained organization.
but
So if there are such things right now, then yes.
it's what I mean. I'm saying if today we would get all the people say no, you shouldn't be doing this, no, you shouldn't be using this, but it's I think if it was mentioned CGI of this generation, it just would lose something. You've got to have a live orangutan
Okay.
in this sort of scenario because you just lose it if you don't.
Okay. Well, again, yes, he was a character in the movie, but it was also marketing as well, and people forget that the marketing was huge back then. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah,
it was part of the movie. It did actually push the movie.
yeah.
But don't forget too, you had the banana splits as a children's,
Yeah.
variety show with them dressed
Alex,
up. Right.
Alex, I've got to break it to you though. There wasn't really animals.
Right, but I'm saying they look like it, and they also had that ridiculous TV show. What was it, Lancelot Link, where they were acting like they were in a spy, movie or Thunderbirds or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you also right. Then you also had Planet of the Apes. So I think it was a lot of in jokes. I think it was a lot of sarcasm.
Yeah, I just think if it was made today, we would have the animal rights campaigners absolutely up in arms about everything, and you would lose a lot of the heart of the original movie. You've got to have it. You've got to have Clyde, orangutan, whatever. You cannot have. Oh, let's have a CGI thing.
But if there, like I was saying, if there was a group of people with trained animals today,
Yeah, I
that
totally agree.
an actual like company,
Yeah,
because he was a part of something that had existed before the movie. So that's why they were able to, utilize his
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. And it brought so much to the movie. It
Well,
really did.
don't forget that PETA was around back then as well.
right.
And there was people that I know because I was alive, and I heard some people going, "Oh, I don't like this Clint Eastwood. He's too popular. He's too big. He's too well known." They
He's
probably,
more
you
he's
know,
more successful than us.
right. So they
Yeah.
also assume that but remember, this is the era, the decade of Benji, of Lancelot, Link. So they were already trying to make, animals cutesy. I mean, you had two famous cats, or even more actually. One was selling cat food that talked, and then, so you already had this cutesy kind of, you know, display of animals.
Mm.
So, like I said, I think that people don't realize that they were trying to be very, very sarcastic with this movie.
Yeah. Before we finish on final say and scores, I'd just like to go on about the animals sort of thing in the movies. Can we just say R.I.P. Grumpy Cat?
Yeah.
You will be sorely missed.
Yeah.
But
What was that cat's name?
Tartar sauce.
Tartar sauce. Yeah.
but the money will still roll in.
Of course.
So let's go to final say score. Over to you two.
Okay. Because it was sort of another one of those period pieces, so to speak. And because of Clyde, and because of the kind of humor that it was, I'll give this an 8. It was a watch. It was enjoyable. Not you know not too impossible to get around, and I enjoyed some parts of it wholeheartedly. Giggled my face off. Um, and I loved the character that Clyde brought to it, and and I thought it was enjoyable to watch it again. Here's
Again, yes, it is a period piece. Like I said, I think it's very sarcastic. I think people don't realize it. I think that this is a direct turning of its head of Convoy and Smokey and the Bandit. And of course, it's also a ripoff as well, because people forget that, there were tons of ripoffs of other movies like Star Wars and other movies that have gotten really, really big. And back in the days, you didn't have video per se and internet and all that. So, you know, it was fun to have movie conversations in a way too, where we would discuss, Star Wars or Rocky 2 or other things. Did I really like this movie? Maybe as a piece of Americana. And there's about 9 other movies that are really famous that kind of do this gritty American honky tonk. I'm sort of a cowboy individualist. I will give it credit, as much as other critics didn't like the scene where Sandra Locke kind of goes a little crazy, and Clint Eastwood lets her give him a bloody nose and all this type of stuff. I'll give it credit for not constantly feeding into the stereotypes and the sarcasm, but sort of turning it on its head.
Mm.
To even the other scene where I'm not exactly sure why Clint Eastwood was beating up his sort of sidekick, even after he caught a fish. But like I said, I think that was trying to make fun of Smokey and the Bandit, because when I saw that movie again, I kind of went, yeah, there's a lot of characters in here that I think are groveling, sniveling kind of, characters. So I think it's tough too. And remember that, people forget some of these movies were just made to make money, and they weren't made to be remembered 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. And not everybody's that intelligent or brave to say, I'm going to make a movie that's, completely groundbreaking, and I don't care if people don't like it per se, or whatever. and some of those are cult, and some of those are not. But like I said, Clint Eastwood is still very big. They even made fun of it with Crocodile Dundee, with characters in that movie saying, "Oh, that's Clint Eastwood," even though it wasn't. Uh, so I'll give the movie credit for not being the typical stereotypical I'm a guy and everybody's gonna like me or everybody's gonna love me or everything's gonna go my way, which they had in a lot of movies for 20 years before Every Which Way But Loose was made. And I agree, they probably wouldn't be the same movie now. They'd probably have to change it. But again, this, people forget. It wasn't so much making everybody feel good. It was pushing the envelope, but hopefully not making everybody mad or making everybody upset. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
why not make a movie with an orangutan in it? Why not have him be kind of the real sidekick? They wouldn't do that now because they'd be going, oh, this isn't respectful to the animal. Well, I mean, you can't have everything one way. And
Enjoy life. Enjoy life.
so, you have some movies that are very highbrow and you have some movies that are very lowbrow. And you have some movies that are in a bar or in that atmosphere of a bar, which this movie partially is. Just like Urban Cowboy, part of it is in a bar. Not the whole movie, but part of it is. And they were showing a part of life that wasn't as stylized as the 60s. The 60s was very pretty and very stylized, especially the American cinema. And they were pushing. There was a movement in the 70s to make it more quote unquote, sorry, to make it more down to earth or gritty. So they showed more characters that weren't as likable. They showed more violence. They showed more Mean Streets and Godfather and other types of movies that they didn't show just the pretty kind of life or everybody acting polite or whatever. But I'll give it a 7. Like I said, actually, I'd rather watch Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry or another character. I wasn't too fond of the character, even though I'll give him credit for taking a beating when he wasn't expecting it. So that part I'll say is a little bit more realistic.
Cool. Yeah, well, maybe sometime in the future we may get round to a Dirty Harry, but we'll see. For me personally, as I say, it brought back memories of one of my first video cassettes rented. Yeah, it's a bit dated now, but it's of its time, as we've said. Riding the wave of, as Alex said, of Convoy and Smoking the Bandits. But it was a breath of fresh air for Clint Eastwood as an actor. As we said, the cowboy Eastwood, the cop Eastwood. I enjoyed it. It was good to rewatch it again. The comedy's still there. I'm going to go soon. I'm going to give it an 8. It's an enjoyable watch. I mean, the sequels as good as this as well. But Alex is going to say he's enjoyed the sequel more.
I actually did, even though the biker gang is more laughable. The biker gang is definitely more cartoonish, and there wasn't as much Clyde. And then they had a rumor that Clyde was beaten up or whatever when that wasn't true. So there you go again with with the marketing as well.
Hey, but it's been fun. It's been fun to talk about Every Which Way But Loose, even if it's only a small group, because we like our movies, don't we, Alex and Susan? Say yes, Lee.
Well, let me ask you a question, Lee. Even though I know I'm stretching the cast out longer,
Ooh.
was there any British cinema that was similar? I know they had Get Carter, the original version, not the remake. I know they had a lot of Michael Caine movies where he actually played, spies and all that.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't the same decade, but do people forget that the British cinema British actors have always been popular in a sense, but was there any British cinema beside, Get Carter, other where they showed more gritty people. They didn't show everybody.
Um, yeah, yeah, I would say the period of late 60s, early 70s. We are talking like the Get Carter period, early 70s. There was quite a few gritty movies back then.
And was there any movies that you could think of where the women were kind of like, oh, I'm going to do what I want, even with the, I don't know how strong the social convention was.
Well, there was the '80s. There was
Yeah.
Shirley Valentine and like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. 'Cause you've put me on the spot now. I'm trying to think back to gritty. I'm sure there is. There must be.
Well,
I'll have to go to Google that afterwards.
yeah. Well, for instance, like I remember, even though it's the wrong decade, the Buster movie with Phil Collins, where he did kind of play a gangster.
Oh yeah.
Even though I love the soundtrack, and it's a very pretty, scenery and all that. One of the things that I didn't like about this movie, and only hurt his career a little bit, was the fact that he slaps his wife, in the movie, and I was kind of like, wow, that's very unpleasant. And I'm
It was.
surprised they didn't, ban that movie or whatever. I think some TV people here edited that part out actually.
I'm trying to think. There was a British movie called A Taste of Honey. That was quite a gritty female part in that. Also, The Killing of Sister George. That was quite gritty.
Oh yeah.
But then they're all roughly around about late 60s, early 70s, and I think that was when British cinema was gritty. It sort of followed all the mainstream after that, I think. But yeah, if you check those movies out though, Killing of Sister George and A Taste of Honey, they're two brilliant movies. But as I said, we're going to close this one now. Thanks for you guys. Always a pleasure. Never a chore. Well, sometimes. But yeah, and you guys out there, if you like this stuff, what we talk about, the nonsense we talk movies, we talk TV, we talk audio dramas, whatever, give us a like, give us a comment, please. And if you want to join us, because we're desperate, we want some people in here. No, we like some new faces in here. Just leave us a message, get in touch with us, just to say, I'd love to join. And if you've got any suggestions of what we could talk about, hey, we'll be up for listening to you. So until then, we will be seeing you later. Right turn, Clyde.